Hi boys and girls, it's Miss Torres here with our next installment in Martha Speaks Campfire Stories, Chapter 2, Story number 2. It's called Nightmare in the Tree, and it looks kind of like this. And you can see what's going on, and they're still camping outside and all this great stuff to do. Okay, let's see what it says. Now that was science fiction, said TD. I give it 4 stars. Truman poked his head out of his sleeping bag. That wasn't too scary. In the darkness, Alice flinched. But that is, she said. What? Helen whispered. That thing flying outside the tent, Alice said, pointing at a shadow on the tent wall. We screamed. What is it? Helen asked. And there's the picture of them and the thing outside the tent, and they're screaming. Okay. Whatever it is, it's going to give me nightmares, Truman squeaked. What's a nightmare? I asked. A nightmare is a bad dream, Alice explained. Oh, like when I dreamt the pet shop gave me a ton of free dog food but forgot to include the can opener? I asked. Sure, said Alice. She cautiously unzipped the tent to see the creature more closely. We all peeked out as she shined her flashlight on it. Look, she said, over there. We looked up. Somebody or something in a long coat hovered in the tree. We couldn't see its face, only its sleeves flapping in the breeze. And there's the pictures. So cool. It's a ghost, shouted Truman. Ah! We all screamed. Finally, Helen stopped. Hey, she said, that's not a ghost. It's just my rain slicker. I left it on the gate, and the wind must have blown it up there. Oh, I said, feeling silly. I knew that. Okay, said TD, my turn to tell a story. He took out his pen and yellow pad. I have a good one to share. It starts with Martha, and then TD told the scariest story I ever heard. And there's the jacket, there's the kids, there's Martha. Let's see. Meet the Feelings, a TD story. And there's a picture of what he's going to be talking about. One day, Martha was sitting in her yard when she got an invitation. Helen asked her to take a walk with her and her dad. We're off to visit our new neighbors, the Feelings, she said. They just moved in down the block. We're going to stop by and say hi, Dad said. Come with us. Martha joined them, even though something didn't seem quite right. All the way there, she kept to herself. Feelings, feline. Feline, feline. She thought. I feel like I've heard that name before, but where? They stopped at the cheery little house. Mr. and Mrs. Feline welcomed them inside. They seemed nice enough. So why did Martha still feel so strange? While Mrs. Feline cooked in the kitchen, they talked to Mr. Feline in the living room. It's so nice to meet you, Mr. Feline said to them. We just love Wagstaff. Suddenly he froze and stared hard at the bird hopping on the windowsill. Now that's peculiar, Martha thought. You were saying, said Dad? Mr. Feline turned back to them. What? Oh, just that we love it here. At the moment, Mrs. Feline came into the room. Would you care to join us for lunch, she asked. And how, Martha blurted out. Speaking for the group, that is. And there's the picture of the Feelings and Martha and the lunch. Okay. In the kitchen, they gathered to eat. Martha sniffed at the soup in her dog bowl. It didn't smell as good as her favorite, alphabet soup. But hey, Martha eats from the garbage. So she figured she couldn't complain. Said Dad, smells delicious. What is it? An old family recipe, said Mrs. Feline. It's called, said her husband, mouse soup. Ach, Martha said, her stomach turning. Helen got queasy too. Said Dad. I'll go get more spoons, said Mrs. Feline. Martha looked around the room. Yep, she thought, there's definitely something mysterious about the Feline family. In the living room, the Feline's baby crawled on the couch. He stopped to scratch the fabric and sharpen his claws. The baby leaped on the back of the couch to scowl at the bird on the windowsill. Hiss went the baby. There's the picture of the dog and the baby and the bird, and not so cool. "We have to get out of here," Martha said to Helen and Dad. "Why?" Dad asked. "I just remembered what feline means." Everybody stared at Martha, waiting, but she was too scared to speak. "Yes?" asked Mr. and Mrs. Feline, narrowing their eyes at Martha. "What does feline mean?" "A feline is a," Martha stammered. But before she could say anything, the dreaded word, the felines reached for their faces. They whipped off their masks they were wearing to reveal. And look at Martha's face and look at the felines. That's awesome. "Cat!" Martha shrieked. The felines weren't human at all. They were actually cat people from another planet. "Meow," said Mrs. Feline. "Meow," said Mr. Feline. "Ow," said Dad. "Cute." "Cute," Martha shouted. "They're cats! Run!" Helen and Martha took off screaming. "Oh, all right," Dad sighed. He threw his arms into the air and screamed too. "Ah!" And they fled from the felines. Meow, meow, hiss. The felines were catching up. The other three had to think fast. "This way," Martha said, heading towards the lake. Helen and Dad caught up to her at the water's edge. "The lake," asked Helen. "Cats hate water," Martha explained. "Quick, dive in." And look, there's their cat heads. And there's the rest of the family running with the cats chasing them to the lake. Splash! They ran into the lake and paddled out until the felines looked like tiny furballs on the shore. Sure enough, the cats didn't dip a paw in the water. "Drat," said Mr. Feline. "Meow," went Mrs. Feline. Finally, they gave up and left. Martha, Helen, and Dad made it home safe and sound. Helen and Martha talked in the kitchen while Dad cooked lunch. "Phew," said Helen. "That was a close one." "I'll say," Martha agreed. "If those cat people caught us, they'd probably turn us into cats too." Dad chuckled from where he stood at the counter. He was stirring something in a big bowl. "I bet you two are hungry after all," he said. "I'm starving. What have you got?" Martha asked, sniffing a familiar smell. And there they're running to the lake, and there's Dad cooking. "Some delicious," he said, turning around, "mouse soup." Dad's whiskers twitched mechanically. "Cat!" Helen and Martha cried. "Ah!" meowed Dad. There he is. Okay, thank you for joining me. See what happens next time.